What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Always Sporadic Story Mode. Today I have George from G to the Next Level. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing great. How are you?
Oh, fine, all things considered. We talked about the weather, other things here and there.
Oh
We
yeah,
got,
just enduring that Texas heat right now.
oh yeah,
Yep.
you guys ain't gonna be affected by that upcoming hurricane, are you?
It doesn't look like it. It looks like I have family in Louisiana, so I feel their pain. Like it looks like it's gonna hit them, but it looks like we're gonna get spared. But you never know with hurricanes or tropical storms. Like it could still get us. Not like
Yeah,
we're not used to it by now.
could take that sharp left at Albuquerque.
Yep, sure could.
Well, Well, man, we kind of talked about it. It's just basically a conversation between two guys on the internet that like to talk about video games and nerdy stuff like that. So, I mean, for those of us that aren't familiar with you, tell us about your channel. Like, what do you do? Why'd you start it? All that fun jazz.
Okay, awesome. So my channel is G to the Next Level. Basically, it's a retro gaming YouTube channel that focuses on retro gaming in the modern age, but with a little bit of Sega flair. Like as you can see behind me, like I'm a huge Sega fan. My logo is Sega focused. Like pretty much, it always came back to Sega, and I think it really comes down to because I started gaming around like the Atari 2600 days, and playing in the arcades with my dad because we used to go bowling together and he would let me play in the arcade while they went and go bowling. I think it's really where it all kind of started from there, but I think it's mainly because that arcade, I guess they must have had like an exclusive agreement with like Sega or something because they had like all the heavy hitters. They had Altered Beast, they had Space Harrier, they had Outrun, like they had everything, that was there. And because once the Sega Genesis came out, they said, "Okay, we're bringing these arcade games home." So again, my dad and I played those games together and was like, "Okay, we're gonna get a Genesis." But then everything really kind of came into the next level, so to speak, with Sonic, of
Mm.
course. And that's another thing. It's like it always comes back to good old Sonic in that. But and then this, I've just more or less like I still love current gen gaming and whatnot. Like I'm an Xbox and PlayStation fan too. I love the Switch, but it always comes back to retro, and I think that's why I decided to make my channel more retro focused. But I pride on it being a variety sort of channel. Like, of course, there are going to be reviews, but then I like to kind of spice things up a bit. So I've got multiple series. And the main series is that I do, or the main couple of series that I do, is I do one called the Treasure Chest, where I basically take like rare and uncommon games in my collection, give it a full on review, and see if it's really worth your time. However, like say perfect example, I could pick something like, oh, I don't know, The Punisher, like on the Genesis, and then just give it a good run through, and then determine, okay, you know what, is it really worth it? Should you play it? Should you not? Should you buy it? Like that sort of thing. That's one of the series that I do. I have a series called Level 10, or it's a countdown series, where I like to do stuff like, games that you may have skipped, games that should have been on this compilation. I'm working on one right now because for the next series I'm going to talk about, basically for TurboGrafx 16, I just got the TurboGrafx 16 Mini, and it's a nice little system. But there are still games that should have been on it, like games that should have been on this, or maybe like I did another level 10 on like my favorite controllers, just things like that, And then console consultation is one of my big key series where I take either mini, micro consoles, or even stuff like the arcade one up. I give them a good run through and unboxing, cover the games, and then just give a bottom line about it. And then probably my favorite to make out of all of them is the three gaming items I'm proud to own, where I pick like three unique items in my collection, whether they stem from my childhood or maybe there's a cool story behind how I got it or what it means to me. And I love doing this because I love sharing stories, mainly before everybody else. But yeah, that's really where it comes down to retro gaming in the modern age with a bit of Sega and Sonic flair.
Okay, so what was the inciting incident, the impetus, the moment where you're like, I'm gonna make a YouTube channel? Like, someone's not filling this retro video game Sega flair void, and I'm the man to do it.
I think it really comes down to because I've been watching like the OGs of YouTube for a long time. So, like, say the Angry Video Game Nerd, say the people at like What Culture, for example, the old Screw Attack guys, the Nostalgia Critic, like people like that. It's like whether or not they're still around today, those really were I kind of inspired. And I thought to myself, aside from people like Captain S, Sega Lord X, and a couple of other YouTubers, there really isn't that much Sega love at the time when I wanted to make my own channel, but I didn't really know where to start. I was just like, how should I do this? How should I was like, I have things to say and I want to do it differently. But my point, I was just kind of kicking wheels and just trying to figure out, okay, how do I really want to do this for a while? Until I met a gentleman by the name of Tyler, who used to run a channel called iRetro Gamer. And we met at a convention, Retropalooza, about 4 years ago. And I've been a fan of his channel for a while too. And we just started talking here in Houston. He's just like, you know what? It's like, how about this? How about you come on my channel? It's like, come on my channel. It's like, we'll talk about a couple of things and just see how it goes. And I think that's what broke the shell. Is after working with him for we did videos together for almost a year. It's like after
Cool.
working together for with him for almost a year, that's when I finally figured out, okay, this is how I'm gonna go about doing this. And that's when G to the Next Level was born. So I definitely owe a lot to him. He's still around. He's doing My Retro Life, which is his big series where he has like all of the old school footage with him and his dad from his childhood, and he tells the stories behind that. And
That's
I think
cool.
that's really where I started getting my inspiration in there, and then it just kind of took off.
Well, that's good. Like that's cool. I like your name too. The next level. Like that's obviously Sega. You know,
Yeah,
welcome to the next level and stuff. And have
yep,
you read the?
exactly.
Did you take that from the book Console Wars, or did you? Is that just marketing? The marketing. What's it called? Gosh darn it! The marketing
Oh,
run that stuck in your mind when you were a kid.
I I think it was a little bit of both because if you really think about the console wars in itself, because of course I was Team Sega when I was a kid,
Hmm.
but you had to really think about it. That was the big thing. It's like, welcome to the next level, Sega. You know, those sort of things, like getting in people's face and trying to get Sega out there. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, really, what do I want to go by? Like, because I don't just want to be, George. Like, I want to be something else. I have to think to myself, and again, talking with Tyler, I had to think to myself on names because I originally kind of wanted to go with my old alias, but I was like, no, that's not catchy enough. It's like that's not it doesn't feel the vibe. And I thought about it. It's like what are things that what are Sega's big mantras, so to speak? And I was just like, welcome to the next level. And it's like, well, then people always call me G to the next level. Ah, and that's where
Ah,
it came through.
you're just like that's it. That's it. No more.
That's the one.
That's cool, man. So, I mean, for both of us, we're both kind of, you talked about how you were inspired by the Angry Video Game Nerd and the Nostalgia Critic. Do you watch Some Call Me Johnny at all?
In this channel.
Yeah. And we both kind of have a mutual friend through James from Stuff We Play.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
He's
Yeah,
a
another
cool.
channel that was hugely inspirational and helped me get moving too. He's been there for me a lot. So
He's a
most
cool
definitely.
dude, man. Like I watched his Art of Failure thing, and I'm like, man, that
Dude,
thing.
I love that series.
Yeah. I mean, just what I sometimes imagine what would he do if he actually had like a budget. You know what I mean? Like if you gave him a budget to make a documentary, I think he'd knock it right out of the park.
He would. I
Yeah.
fully believe he would.
Yeah, he does. Oh, and his research is good and stuff. And I'm like amazed because he did three of those, or no, wait, four of those, wasn't it? Uh,
Four, yeah,
There's
because it
four.
was Sonic Extreme, Sonic Boom, the Game Wave, and Freedom Planet. Am I missing one? I might be
Yeah,
missing one.
Superman 64. So he did
Superman
five.
64, so five. Yeah, I was about to say, wait, I'm missing one. Yeah,
He did
so
five
five.
of those in the time it took me to track down people for my one failed project. And I'm like, dude, you got like, where do you find the time?
All right. Oh, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine this morning. It is because for people that don't have YouTube as their main source of income, it's all about time management. It's like because here's the thing: I might not have any kids, but it's like I have a loving wife that I love to spend time with and take care of. I work an 8 to 5 job. It's like YouTube. It's fun, but at the same, and I am making a little bit of money. But at the same time, it's still a hobby, and as long as you don't let that get to you and just manage your time the way that you can, then it's good. You'll be able to get it done. And I think one of my biggest things is just that don't let delays and the things really get you down until you really can get the video or whatever you're working on, whatever piece of art that you're working on, the way that you really want to and you're comfortable with releasing to the world.
Yeah. Like put it out when it's ready, not not when it's convenient.
Exactly.
You might
Exactly.
get that bump because they released a new Mario game and you talked about Mario and Zelda or whatever. So You get that
Right,
little bump, but is it really worth it in the long run? Because if your content isn't good, people aren't going to stick around.
right. And then there's always that bug in the back of your head to feed the YouTube machine, so to speak, where it's like, oh, your video's got to be this length, and they got to be released at this time, and you got to be putting them out like weekly or daily or how. Eh. I've kind of gotten to a point like until this actually becomes my my main gig. Right
Hmm.
now, just have fun.
Yeah.
Until you figure your way. Once you find your way and this is working for you, then just go with the flow. You know?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just trying to find my path, and I'm pursuing some other dreams. I want to be a writer, so I want to be like a published author of some kind.
Nice.
That might that might be coming true here in the next couple of weeks. I sent a essay off to a major or a well-known magazine, and they told me it was going to an editor's desk. So hopefully that works out for the best. But
Awesome.
yeah, so I'm gonna have to take off the aspiring writer off my you know job title.
Hey,
But
good luck, man.
yeah, I'm excited for it. But like one thing that I love is video game history. I love it. I love
Same.
history. I was the nerdy guy that carried around the like big thick American history books in high school. So, and I just read those, and I loved reading about it. But like, and when I talk about American history or video game history, I mean, I compare it to imagine this field, okay, and for things like the Civil War or the Revolutionary War, there's well trodden paths, there's a bench, there's a fountain for some reason. People have been here before, you know. You look at the cool and interesting moments in video game history, like the creation of the Xbox, the console wars between Sega and Nintendo, which has now been put into a book by friend of the show Blake J. Harris, you know, and there's really not a lot like this field of video game history is more or less not tread, you know, like there
Oh,
might be some
totally.
like walked paths, but no one's taking the time to like dig into it. And I was
Right.
like,
And that's why I really think that now I'm really getting excited and happy because I think we've now finally gotten to a point because it's like Nintendo has always been kind of king when it comes to the retro gaming world. And even in the world today, I'm not going to say because we got PlayStation out there, but Nintendo is still they're still trucking. They're still one of the biggest names in video gaming, but between like Nintendo and Sega, it's like Nintendo was king and yet Sega was still trucking along but still more in the background of anything. But now within this time, I think because so many people have covered Nintendo so much now that we're starting to see more and more Sega stuff. And
mm-hmm,
it makes me very happy. It's like one of the things I love seeing is RGT 85 and he wrote a
mm-hmm,
book about the complete history of the Sega 32X. And I'm like that's
right,
awesome because the 32X it gets it gets too much hate. It's a good system. It's not a great system. It's a good system. And it's good to see like that Sega 16 put out a book about like the history of the Genesis. We're seeing more and more channels pop up and they're seeing more stuff. It's like it's great. It's like, yeah, there's more there's just a lot more love out there for Sega and
mm-hmm,
beyond Sonic. It's like there's so much more out there. And granted, Sonic's recent rise has definitely helped. It's helped a lot.
yeah.
But it's
The movie
it's
helped a
really good
lot.
to see. Well, the movie helped tremendously.
I
Not
love that
initially,
movie. I
but once
really
it came
like
out, oh dude, the movie, oh man.
that movie is way better than it had any right to be. We'll get into it.
Absolutely.
We'll get into it later. We'll do like a whole
Yeah.
like Sonic movie section. Uh, But like, my point is, there's so much of this cool and interesting. People are taking the time to make these long form videos about like, hey, here's the history of this. Here's the story behind this, and I'm excited about it, and that's where like I really like it because I'm like, man, what if I did something like that, but shoot it in a documentary kind of style, kind of like The Art of Failure, but like kind of more throw in a Casey Neistat vlog kind of feel, where it's like you're moving and you're having fun angles and stuff like that, cinematic and stuff. And I really want to do that, but then you hit the wall of it's like this is hard.
It is. It's hard and it's very time consuming, especially when
Yeah,
you're doing like long form content.
yeah.
Like my level 10 series, perfect example. That series takes when I make videos for that one, they take a long time to develop because like between capturing and researching and all that for all those individual games, that can take time. But I'd love to do stuff like like documentaries, particularly in the future, maybe. But I think right now I think that space is kind of full at the moment. So
Hmm.
it's like it's I mean for me personally, like within the Sega realm, it's like I think it's actually kind of full at the moment between people like James, um, Norm the gaming historian, Slopes Game Room, who I love by the way. It's like Slopes Game Room, they're basically kind of filling that documentary style space, and I love it. But it's inspiring at the same time.
We could talk about, I we could talk about some stuff. I'll tell you off camera about a couple people I had dealings with. I'll just say, like, you know, it's a lot more competitive than you would like.
It can be, and
Yeah.
it can be discouraging because of that. So
I
that's very true.
Here's my question for you though, because like we both kind of looked at YouTube when the rise of like Norm and Pat the NES Punk and the Game Chasers and all these people were coming up, and there was like a retro community that I feel
Hmm.
like is gone now. Do you think that will ever come again? Because like for me, I kind of miss that. You know, you have
Right.
8-Bit Eric on the Game Chasers, or you have Norm on the Game Chasers, and I think the last one on the fringe of that was Super Derek.
Oh yes, yes.
You know, and like, but now it's more like I'm doing my thing. You know, here's my lane. You stay in your lane, and we won't, we won't have problems. And
Uh,
I kind of miss that that community feel that the retro video game area had. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna say that it's dead in that sense. I think it's still around. I think the camaraderie is still there, but I think because of the increasing pressures of YouTube, and not only that, because of one of the things like Game Chasers, perfect example, or like say Flea Market Madness with Pat the NES Punk. So those are the few sort of things that people like to get together about retro gaming. To go hunt for retro games to see what you can get. I think the competitive pricing of the market too has really dragged that down. Notice like Game Chasers, like they don't really get a chance to do that kind of stuff anymore because unfortunately, like even going to flea markets and that kind of stuff, it's hard now. It's hard to find good deals. It's hard to find stuff that you don't already have. So it's like, where do you go from there? But
Yeah.
I think because, like, say for example, like I get a chance to talk to the Game Chasers and 8-Bit Eric and whatnot because they're semi-local to me between Retropalooza because they lovingly bring me in as a guest for their convention in Houston, and so I get a chance to talk with them quite often, and it's just there's still that community there. It really is. I just think that again it's because of the pressures of YouTube and having to appease algorithms and for them because for many of them it is their main source of income, so they have to find a way to survive.
Hmm.
And but I don't know. I don't know if I fully agree that the community is dead. I think it's still there. It's just it's a lot more subdued. I mean,
Nuanced.
it could be because now it's because well, let me see if I can phrase this correctly. I think it's because the general public has gotten so much of a grasp on it now, and
Hmm.
because YouTube has become a lot more commercialized than it has been before. I think all of that together has it's morphed it. It hasn't destroyed it, but it's definitely morphed it.
It's definitely changed. Yeah, I'm not saying it's completely gone either. I'm just like I noticed that it's not as pronounced as it once was. It
Oh
used to
yeah,
be
no,
like,
I definitely agree with that.
yeah, I used to be able to go to talk about to anyone about video games, and they'd be like, yeah, I watch the NES Punk, or I watch 8-Bit Eric, or I watch Super Derek, or Beat 'em Ups, or
Hmm.
insert old retro video game YouTuber here. And I don't mean old as in old. I mean old as in like established.
Seasoned,
Yeah,
yeah,
seasoned. Yeah, there we go.
not age, but in experience.
And now it's just more like, who's that? And like, and I wonder if a lot of it is like this long form content shift that we've seen on YouTube has been kind of weird because like maybe there's not retro video game used to be pretty big. Like, Pro Jared, I mean, there was a whole scandal there, but, say what you will about him. Like, he was a big deal.
Was
And
same with
now,
JonTron and whatnot. It's just like they have their skeletons, but you can't deny that they did help build. They did
yeah,
help build that house. You know.
yeah. But yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, there's, there's, you could tell like when they were getting started, JonTron, all the 8-Bit Eric, all these guys, when they got started, they were like, hey, I'm interested in this. I'm willing to reach out and talk with other people. And I'm realizing like those of us that are now into retro video games and when we talk about video games, when we're just like, you know what? I don't really want to talk to anybody else. I just want to talk to the camera, and I'm happy with that. And there's some outliers like you and me, obviously.
Right.
But like I said, that sense of community is almost like it's not gone, like you said, but it's not as pronounced. It's not as big a deal as it once was, and it makes me kind of sad because I'm like, imagine the cool stuff you could do if we like actually were a community again, or like tried to be more communal again. You know what I mean?
I, another thing to really think about it on it too is that, okay, so how long have you been creating content now?
Like I've never been consistent, but 2015 was my first video. I unboxed Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Okay, so let's say 5 years. Okay, so like 2015. I've been at it now for about, on my own, I've been at it for 3 years, but technically I've been at it for about 4 years now. So we're
Oh,
still
okay. So
kind
you're
of the
just
newer
better than me.
generation.
You're
But
just
no.
better than me. Is that what you're saying?
Not saying that. Not saying that at all. No, no, no,
No.
no. But I think it's really kind of a generational shift too, because think about the people like, I mean, AVGN's still kicking, but you're still thinking about the ones like Pat the NES Punk and however that have been at it for 10 plus years. It's like I think that many of them, I'm not gonna say that they have for sure, but it's like, but many of the old garb, so to speak, have now changed, and maybe they just don't find the same sort of thing anymore, or they found like a new niche and a new style, like Pat and his podcast, perfect example. Like they found a new way and a new style that, hey, I still want to be a part of this, but I'm gonna do this in a different way. Because now I feel like I've done everything that I've wanted to do. Like Game Chase, like how long can you do this? You have to evolve at some point. And so for the mentality of the people that have been doing it for 10 years versus the mentality of people that have been doing it for 5 years is going to be different. I think it's really at this point, Tyler actually said this to me. It's like it's really at this point that for the people like us to start building the new community, to really start encouraging the people that haven't got started to get started. So that way you can keep basically passing the torch, so to speak. It's like basically passing the torch to a new generation of retro gaming YouTubers, because retro gaming's not going away. It's
No.
something that's always going to be in flux. Sometimes it's going to be popular, sometimes it's not. But and then the generations are going to change. Like right now, we were talking earlier about like what's going to be the next big thing. I know you love the GameCube. You said the Wii U is going to be the next big thing when it comes to collecting and whatnot. But
10,
it's like
15 years from now, yeah.
if you notice one thing that's happened, and yes, the pandemic has been a part of this, but the generation between the PS2, GameCube, and the Xbox is what's hot right now. So there's always going to be that cycle, but then that generation is going to go back to its roots and hit the NES and the Genesis. It's going to be a consistent cycle. So it's always, like my wife always says, Pokemon is always in a state of flux, and it's true. It's like different things are always going to be in that. So there's always going to be a void for, I mean, a need for retro gaming video creation, for streaming, for even indie game development. Like there's always going to be a need for that, but it's just going to evolve. And it might be disheartening that some creators have kind of gotten to a point where it's like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to do this, and I don't really feel the need to collaborate or anything like that. If it works for them, more power to them. It might be, but at the same time, then it's like, you know what, then the first impression is always about who's going to reach out and extend the olive branch first.
I'm not dissing people that decide that. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
no, no,
like,
no.
I'm noticing that more and more people are like, I'm fine with me. I'm fine where I'm at. I don't need to, I'm good. That's what I've noticed in the last 2 years when I've really been trying to make this podcast more regular. But,
Right.
as it's called, the Always Sporadic Story Mode.
Which I love the name, by the way.
The story. I thought Story Mode was a good name. It was one of those things I wanted to do a podcast series because one of the things I've always wanted to get going is like as a weekly podcast, but it's never worked out. And I was like, I love podcasting. I love talking to people. And so I was like, well, I'll just call it Story Mode, and when I get someone to come on, we'll talk, and when I don't, no episode. And it sucks because you don't really build an audience that way, but
Right.
this isn't something I'm doing to build an audience. It's like I enjoy talking with people. I enjoy conversations like this, where we're both two very knowledgeable guys, and we can have these deep conversations about Sonic for some god pronounced reason.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always more fun and more effective to do podcasting with multiple people. It's I've seen people who do solo podcasts and they do fine, but it's always, to me, it's more fun. I would love to do a podcast. Realistically, though, considering the time that I have to make my own content, like on my channel, though, realistically, it's not in the cards at the moment. But it's something that I would love to do, just like you, you know.
Yeah. Well, like the All Gen Gamers podcast, I missed out on that. But I guess everybody talks about it like it was this big watershed moment for retro video games in the video game industry and video game people on YouTube, because it was like we all got together and we talked about this thing that we loved and it was great, and and then it didn't last. And I'm like, how cool would it be if it was just if someone could do that, but like for this generation of content creators coming up.
Right, right. Another, like, a podcast that I love to death that does retro gaming extremely well is Arcade Attack. They're 3 to 4 British guys from the UK talking about retro gaming, and they are consistent every week. They put out a new episode every week because they always have something to talk about, and their podcast is awesome. So that's what I'm saying. There's space, but talking about, like, uh, how can I really say that? Because when you look up podcasts about, like, retro gaming and whatnot, there's also not really a whole lot. I feel that there's more room in that space.
Oh, there's so much more room. There's more room in the video game space. It's just like who's gonna put forth the effort to do it.
Right, exactly.
Let's be honest. We don't need any more Let's Players. We don't need any more live streamers. We need someone that's going to be like, I'm going to make amazing video essays. And what's his name? Did Jacob Geller? He did that Shadow of the Colossus one, and like then he did Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario Galaxy. I'm like, these are good, but I'm waiting for some guy to be like, this is all I do. I make interesting essays about like the meaning of stuff. I'm like, I wish I could do that, but I know I'm not that guy.
May I mention somebody that I think you would probably really like? Her name is Maria. She goes by Eurothug 4000, and that's basically what her channel is. Her channel is it's all about, like, basically deciphering certain games and the meanings in them. She had, like, an entire series about Death Stranding. Like, what does this mean? What does that mean? She did something about Dino Crisis and why Dino Crisis should return and the history for that. Why Animal Crossing captivates so many people's hearts, even though some people consider it to be a non-game. Like that sort of thing. Her channel's amazing, and I say, like, different channels like that I would love to see too.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's so much, but my point is, there's just so much more that you can do with video games. Like I would,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear. I want to hear these people talk about video games in the way like we think about them anymore. Where it's like these things aren't just child's play toys. They're these live interactive worlds that we can really dig into, and like the more you dig into it, the more you get out of it. And it's something about game design, and that's something that maybe I should explore and looking into, like, the fundamentals of how they approach this game design now compared to when they were making Sly Cooper or Jack and Dexter and
right.
stuff. Like there's been a massive shift in the last 15 years, and no one's really like talked about that, or to my knowledge at least. And it's interesting because like there was some people doing it. You saw it a little bit in like I haven't played it, but people say Xenogears kind of had the elements of it like you see nowadays with like God of War and stuff, with character development and stuff. Resident Evil, I guess maybe Dino Crisis. I haven't played that one either, but like, there was always elements. And it's kind of funny how you saw these games that had these elements, and now those are so pronounced in the games industry. And that's something that I love to see. And maybe that's worth looking into. I don't know.
It might be, but as you said earlier, it's just all about finding your way.
Yeah, I think you
And
said
like
that.
oh, did I say that? Oh, maybe I did say that.
Maybe
But
I did say that.
like,
I'll just pat myself on the back.
but I think when it comes to the space, there's always whatever is going to be popular is really what people are going to be leaning more towards. But at the same time, there's always going to be those ones like us that, hey, we might be quote unquote going against the grain a little bit, but because you could see in how well the videos come through and how much passion there is in it, they'll still continue to do well amidst, like, the glut of let's plays. And I understand live streaming too. Like, I live stream
Yeah.
every now and then too. And it's like, you know what, I get it. It's not my main thing, but it's like I'd like to have that as kind of an off on the side. It's fairly simple. It's easy to do, and there's that adrenaline rush of having one-to-one communication with the person that you used to just watch static content on. So I totally understand that.
Oh yeah,
But
I'm not
but I
dissing
do
it.
but I agree with no, no, I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm not really saying you're dissing these things. It's like I'm just really saying that I think I'm kind of with you in the point that there needs to be a little bit more focus on like stronger essays, not just game reviews, but like digging down deeper stuff like James's The Art of Failure, Slope's Game Rooms, the history in the games, the complete history, like stuff like that. That's always going to be in need. And to be honest, YouTube likes longer form content. It tends
Yeah.
to promote. I know this firsthand because I see like when my longer videos tend to do better than my shorter videos, they tend to. That's why I lean more towards long form content because that's what seems to work and that's what people seem to like. I get more interactions, I get more people talking back in the comment section of those longer form stuff. So, and I agree that I think that's really where it steps in the right direction, you know?
We're definitely heading that way, and it makes me really excited to see what people are gonna do. And it's like inspired me to try and like work on other things, but I don't know. My life's a little hectic at the moment.
I think everybody's is,
Yeah.
especially right now.
You
So,
think with the virus, you think a lot of people would be like, you know what, I'm not that busy. But for me, it's just like, yeah, you might not be busy, but like I'm just treading water here, pal.
same. I completely understand.
Yeah.
You know?
But I don't know. I'm excited to see where the future YouTube is, especially in the game space, and
Right.
like what people are gonna do with it, because there's in no way like an end coming soon. And I don't know. This generation's gonna be weird. We're gonna see it. I think we're gonna see a shift in with in this next gen of the PS5 and Xbox Series X, or isn't it just called the
Series X.
Xbox now?
It it's technically just called the Xbox. It's just the Series X is the first model to come in this new line, but it's to me it's the whatever. It's the Xbox
It's
Series X.
yeah.
I just got an Xbox One X, so I'm not really itching to get the Series X when it first comes out.
I I
Honestly, I'm not itching to get the PS5 either.
Me
It's like
neither.
I'm gonna wait it off a little bit.
Me too. I'm gonna if they unless they this upcoming PlayStation event they're just like we got Spider-Man 2 day one. I'm like, well, shit.
Yeah. See if they get something killer like that. We'll see. That's why I was hoping that because it was. I'm sure you probably saw like the kind of rumblings that was happening with Sega and their big announcement and however, and then people are saying that there were ties with Microsoft and however, and people were like, "Oh, does this mean that we're gonna get a new console?" And I'm like, "Please no, no new Sega consoles, please." However, I know when people are saying it's like, "Oh, well, Microsoft might take a greater investment in that," and I'm just like, "Exclusives?" It's like, 'cause if there's one thing Xbox needs, it's exclusives. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, well, hey, getting Sega as an exclusive on board. I understand they couldn't do Sonic. That would be death. They couldn't do that. But if they did it with say some of their other franchises, I think that would have been a good move. But no, we got a Game Boy for ants and we got a cloud arcade gaming. Okay, good job. Come on,
Yeah, way to
come on,
go.
Sega.
That not that much of an
That,
announcement.
no, it
I
really wasn't.
You know what? We can diss on Sega all we want, but for the more I think about them and the more like I'm watching them, I love the Persona 5. I love Persona 5. I love Persona 4. I love the Persona series of those two games that I have experienced. I have the other
To
two.
me, that's Atlas. That's really
Yeah.
only Sega in it's like, okay, we're funding this, we're putting this here. But to me, that's Atlas. I know people like the 60th anniversary, like that Sega's really doing right now, and there's like, okay, hey, we're putting all of these icons to commemorate the history of Sega and all that. And then I see the Atlas stuff on there. I'm like, okay, fine, but is that really?
Mm,
But I know some people jump to say it's like, oh well, Atlas saved Sega. I'm like, okay,
Technically,
fair
yeah.
enough. Fair enough. They helped them out a lot, but they're still not Sega. They're Atlas. But it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine,
Well,
whatever.
I'm
But
just
I mean,
wait.
don't get me wrong. I really like Persona,
Yeah.
so I'm like, I'm cool with that.
Well,
I
I'm
still
just
need to play
looking at
five.
him. I'm like watching. I'm watching Sega. I'm like, when are you gonna try and get your grubby little hands on Atlas? I'm just like, leave him off in the playground right now. Let him be. They're
Doing the
making
right
good
thing.
shit.
They're doing
They're
the right
making
thing,
good stuff.
and that's what I hope that whenever a company gets absolved by another one, that's what they would do. Like, say for example, when Disney bought ABC, they kind of let them do their thing. So
Hmm.
when Sega bought Atlas, they let them do their thing. I'm like,
Hmm.
well, hey, that works.
But
Yeah.
let's be fair here. Sega doesn't always make the best choices. Like the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, we're transitioning into this now. They had nothing to do with it. They're like, yeah, we're out, and I'm just like, why? Like, why aren't
Yeah,
you? Why? No, this is your biggest franchise, and you guys are like, no, we're good. They're like, no, yeah, no, we're good.
I don't know. There's a whole different. I could go on for a while about Sega of Japan and the decisions they make and whatnot. There's this weird like sense of undeserved pride, if I could really
Yeah,
say that. That if something doesn't fly over there, they feel the need that okay, well nobody else really gets to do this either, and it's unfortunate because it's like okay, what Sega IPs are still prominent? There's Sonic, there's Yakuza, there's Football Manager, and I guess. I mean, to me, I'm not gonna count Wonder Boy or Streets of Rage. I'm not gonna
hmm
count either one of those because technically that's them in name only. They didn't extend the olive branch to do that. They wanted to make those other companies and Sega's just like, okay, fine, cool. We're gonna put our name on it and we're gonna take this money and you do whatever you want. And it's like, although realistically, you should be the one doing these. You should have been the one to make a Streets of Rage 4. You should have done this years ago, but it didn't do well in Japan, so yeah,
yeah.
it's same thing with Golden Axe and many other franchises. Outrun, the biggest one. I'm like, that's an easy thing to bring back. But to me, I think it's just Sega doesn't want to pay Ferrari. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if Microsoft was fitting the bill, that could have happened.
Well,
So,
that's the interesting part because Sega and Microsoft kind of had a agreement in like with the Dreamcast and then into the Xbox era. So
oh yeah,
like,
the Sega exclusives that they had on the Xbox were wonderful. They
yeah,
they were they were outstanding. I mean, Jet Set Radio Future, Panzer Dragoon Orta. I even liked Iron Phoenix. I thought Iron Phoenix was a fine game.
never
And then they
played
had
it.
Fantasy Star for a little while, and then Outrun 2. And
Yeah,
it's really
Shenmue 2.
Shenmue 2. Yeah, I mean they could have. I mean, now granted, I actually have the Dreamcast version. Whoops, I don't know what just fell.
Oh,
The Dreamcast version of Shenmue 2.
I really
But
want that. I
uh,
really want that one.
But it's just again, I don't know, man. I love Sega and I will love them forever. But if there's one thing I will always criticize them for, is for leaving money on the table. They do that way too often. It's like you have all
Hmm.
these gold IPs that you could be making so much money and making so many people happy on, but they're either too afraid or they're too cheap to just try it. You know,
The
it
other
could
thing
work.
is they don't respect Sonic.
Again, it's another one of those things where it's like Sonic does really well enough because he is the franchise. He's the mascot of the company. So they keep him around, but at the same time, he does so much better in the West than he does in Japan.
Hmm.
So I think it's another one of those reluctant sort of things, sort of just like, okay, I guess we have to because he's our mascot. But it's yeah, they do kind of again going back to excuse me, other companies and other development teams doing the work for them. Sonic Mania,
Yeah,
perfect example. It's
yeah.
like Sonic Mania is a great game. Is it my favorite Sonic game? No. But it's a great game. No. But again, who made that? Not Sega. Like another company, Christian Whitehead and his team. They
Hmm.
did that. And
And they're
then when
making
Sega came
another
out
one,
with
aren't
their
they?
own, we don't know yet.
Oh,
Nothing's been confirmed yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they are, but nothing's been confirmed yet. They were supposed to have some big announcement at South by Southwest, but pandemic, so that
can.
didn't happen. Yeah, who knows? Who knows what's going on with it now? But then Sonic Forces came out, which I think one of the biggest mistakes they did was bringing out Sonic Forces at the same time as Mania. That was one of their biggest mistakes because, like, I think Forces is a fine game. I will die on that hill. I think it was a fine game. It didn't blow me away. It didn't do anything super revolutionary, but it was a solid game. And when it comes to 3D Sonic, a solid game is a huge step in the right direction. Let's be real.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
mean,
it's a
what?
huge step in the right direction, but people dumped all over it because it wasn't Mania, or it wasn't Sonic Adventure 3, or it wasn't this. And it's like
But like,
you can't
I've
win sometimes with Sonic.
with this whole Sonic Adventure 3 argument, do you really think the people behind Sonic now who would make Sonic Adventure 3, do you think it would be anywhere as good as Sonic Adventure 1 or 2?
No,
Yeah. So
I
like,
really don't think so.
I'm
I
just
That's
like,
why I always say it. Like, do you guys really want this? Are you sure you want this? Because again, it's. I mean, when it comes to Sonic, unfortunately, I have to really say, I love the series, but now with the fans and whatnot, the the standards have been set incredibly high. It's like Sega, whether it be Christian Whitehead or Sonic Team or whoever, they could do every single thing right with it. They could knock something completely out of the park. The people are always going to keep wanting more. They're always going to find stuff that's just like, okay, well, it's not this. When are we going to get a Sonic Adventure 3? And I've said this before. I'm like, guys, you already got a Sonic Adventure 3. You just don't want to accept it. It's called Sonic Unleashed.
Oh,
That yeah,
yeah.
that's Sonic Adventure 3 if you really think about it. I mean,
Or
some
Sonic
people might even
Generations, or
Nah, I mean, Sonic Generations is kind of its own thing. But
I
it's
just
like you
the
got it already, but you didn't want to give it a chance because it wasn't exactly the same. It wasn't a pure sequel. It's like, what do you want? It's like you want the same thing, but you want something different.
yeah. The
All right.
problem the problem I see with Sonic anymore, and this is like my biggest problem with the series, is they've in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, there was moments where like sure there it was just like you could set the controller down and it played the game. But then
Yeah.
there's those moments where it break it up and it's like, okay, now you need to pay attention here, you know? And so it broke it up and it made it fun. And sure, you weren't going fast, but I thought it made the game better because it made you take your time and you really got to go into the into the game. And
I'm glad you
now
said that. Go ahead.
now
I'm sorry.
you're yeah, sorry. But now I'm in like Generations or Blast, or I played the demo for Sonic Forces and it's literally like you can set the controller down after you get up to like the high speed. I'm like, this is boring. This is not fun. Like it's mindless. It's
I understand.
yeah.
I totally understand that take about forces. That's a fair argument because there are many portions where you're just like, okay, I feel like I should be controlling this, but I'm not. And I wonder if maybe that's because maybe they were having difficulty trying to get it to work properly within the engine to where you can control it, but maybe they didn't say like, okay, well then you're not going to control this portion because if you do, bad things might happen. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not a developer, so I'm not really sure exactly how that goes down. But I'm glad you said that about how it's like you don't always have to go fast
Mhm.
if it still feels like Sonic, and it still has that amount of control that you would have. Because I can tell you, there's one other game that the Sonic, actually not even just Sonic fans, but just like a lot of people tend to dump on, I thought was a fantastic game, and that's Sonic Lost World. And that's
Ah,
another one. That's another hill I will die on because I'm like, they tried something unique and different. To me, it's like when people joke around, it's like, oh, it's like a cross between Sonic and Super Mario Galaxy. I'm like, yeah, it is.
okay.
It really is. And to me, it worked. Yeah, the boss guys, the Deadly Six, they were kind of hokey and whatnot, and there were some levels of cringe, like within the game in itself, particularly Tails. Like there are some levels of cringe, but the game was so much fun, and I always applaud when Sonic Colors on the Wii. Another example, like I always applaud whenever they try to do something different, but it always seems like whenever they try to do something different, it doesn't really get the chance, And sometimes it fails. I completely understand that Sonic 06. Sometimes it fails, but it's like give it a chance. You can't keep doing 2D Green Hill Zone every single game. You just can't.
Yeah.
You know,
And like
eventually you're gonna run out of steam.
I enjoyed Lost Worlds. I have it. I played it, and from what I
Oh
played,
yeah,
I
it's
really
great.
enjoyed
Well,
it.
as long as you play it on Wii U or Steam, don't play the 3DS one.
No,
That one's
no.
not good.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. But my biggest problem is like, okay, let's be honest here. Okay, let's compare Lost Worlds to Super Mario 3D World. Okay, you
Okay.
sit down with Super Mario or 3D Land, the one that came out on the Wii U, because they're both Wii U games. Okay.
3D World is the one that came out on the Wii U,
Okay.
right? The multiplayer one.
The one with the cat suit.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyways, compare that to Sonic Lost Worlds. You pick up your gamepad or your controller for the 3D Mario, 3D World, 3D Land. I don't know. That's gonna bother me. But like, and instantly the gameplay is responsive. It's fun. It's like you feel very in control of this character. The music's upbeat and stuff. You pop in Lost Worlds and it's not that. You don't get that same feeling. You don't get that fluidity. You don't get that music. It's just like, meh, like it's Sonic and you can have a fun time, but it's much more of a hill to climb to get to that fun time. Where in 3D Land, it's right off the bat.
agree with that. Well, I mean, except for the, I don't know, maybe I'd debate on the music because Lost World's music to me is awesome. But I definitely agree with that. The barrier for entry is definitely higher on Sonic
Hmm.
Lost World versus, but that's always been kind of the key point of Nintendo as a whole. Like
Hmm.
for their key franchises, especially, they're all about pick up and play. They're all about
Yeah.
something that you don't really have to take a whole lot of time. Anybody from your 8 year old to your grandma, like anybody can pick up and play these games. And that's one thing I will always give Nintendo much love for. They know their audience and they do it. But it's like to me, if you're willing to unless the game is broken, which I get it, but it's like if you're willing to take the time to really get into it, it's an awesome game. Yeah, it can be, but again, people didn't want to really give it a shot. And it didn't help that it was a Wii U exclusive, so that definitely didn't help. But
Yeah. But my point is, it's just like Sega hasn't taken the point of been like, okay, we're gonna make Sonic Control great, because a lot of these problems would be like if we sat down and thought about how do you control this fast moving hedgehog at a fundamental level, it would alleviate a bunch of problems, you know. And don't get me wrong, it's cool when you go around the loop de loop and the camera zooms out and you can see Sonic, the little blue line coming around. I'm like, that's cool. It would be a lot cooler if I didn't realize that I could set the controller down and it would be the same thing.
well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever played Sonic R on the Saturn
No,
or on the GameCube because it was on Sonic Gems Collection?
no.
Okay, so in Sonic R, that's the foot racing game on the Saturn. It's not good. The I I kind of bite my tongue by saying that it's not good because there are things I love about Sonic R, but the game is not great. But per what you're saying about, hey, you're going through a loop to loop, you're going through this portion, you can put the controller down. Guess what? In
Hmm.
Sonic R, you can't when you're doing that. But guess what happens if you try to oversteer and whatnot? You fall out of the loop.
Hmm.
So I think that's really where that kind of comes down to. Maybe they feel like, okay, if you're going through these particular portions that are supposed to be, oh wow, awesome,
Hmm.
maybe they don't want to disrupt that.
Hmm.
But if they do it too much, then you're just basically playing glorified QuickTime events.
Yeah. Well, basically that's how it was in Adventure 1 and 2, where you actually had control of Sonic or Shadow when you went around the loop de loop, and you could fall off.
Right.
And that was annoying. But to Adventure series credit, when you hit that loop de loop, it felt natural not to mess with the joystick. Like
Mm,
when I was doing it, I had to force myself to move the joystick just to be like, oh, okay, because it's like,
right.
okay, so like it felt natural. And as the games have progressed, it seems like that feeling of this is a natural movement has become lost in this series as it's moved on.
I understand.
And maybe that's because you don't have that ability to move. Because like it only took me one time to be like, oh, I can move, so I don't have to touch the. Like he'll do the loop itself, and I can enjoy that. But when you
Right.
take away, like people like to say they like the spectacle of watching a video game or whatever, but in reality, you have a controller in your hand. The controller is what transports you into this medium, and it's like that's what makes this a video game. It's not a movie you're watching. You are actively interacting with this entertainment. So like if you take
Right.
that control away after you got to that loop, I feel like maybe some people think they can move and then they don't, and that's what kind of upsets them. But I don't know.
Right.
I'm
I
not
understand that.
not the biggest Sonic fan.
I don't know. I understand. I totally understand. So you're more of a 2D Sonic guy.
No, no. I think
Not
I
even that.
think no. I think that my biggest problem with 2D Sonic is I was a lot better when I was younger. Because like I
Right.
haven't played a 2D Sonic in. I touched a little bit of Mania and then like that's it. I have not played it as much as I should. But like I keep hitting walls and stuff. I'm like, yeah, this isn't fun.
No.
2D
I
Mario,
understand.
I can pound out some great levels in 2D Mario and be like, yeah, I'm good. 2D
Right.
Sonic,
I
I'm
think,
like, nope.
and it's really where it comes down to. Like, I love Mario and I love Sonic. I'm gonna use my wife as a perfect example. Like, say she prefers playing Sonic over Mario, and I think it's mainly because with Sonic, there's a particularly in the later games too, that there's a little bit more ease of being able to get into. Like, you don't have to do super precise platforming and whatnot. Like, you kind of had to, like, say with Mario. Like, one of our biggest things, like when we played Sonic 2 together, she had
Hmm.
such a blast. And it's like we had such a good time like playing those games together. And then whenever we played Sonic Adventure 2 Battle against each other, it's like again so much fun. When we try to play Mario together, it's like I love playing with her, but I can tell that she's struggling and she's not having that much of a good time with something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Even though technically it is easier to pick up and play. See, now we're going back to that. It's like technically it's easier to pick up and play with a Mario game versus a Sonic game, but I think it's just that maybe she feels what's the word? It's not. There's
Baby.
not as much pressure and whatnot on it. I guess.
Well, like, to be fair, both Sonic and Mario have this. Like, they're designed not to be played with people, to be honest. Like, some of them are, some of them have elements that are fun. But, like, for the
Right.
majority, it's just like, this is a solo experience that we just kind of slapped multiplayer onto.
So like
Have
New
fun.
Super Mario Brothers Wii or
Yeah.
however the ones that they made the 2D ones. Like I love those games personally,
Mhm.
but like I tried to play that with her together. She hated it. It's
Yeah.
like she hated it, but she also really liked Mario Galaxy. So
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's a whole debate we could have on Sonic versus Mario, and like how Mario is more about quality and Sonic was more about attitude, really. That just comes.
see that's where it's like no, there's plenty of quality to be had in there. It's just it's your experience. It's like it's basically
Yeah.
the different kind of experience between the two. For me, for that kind of argument, I always like to insert the Road to El Dorado meme where they're both like both, both, both is good,
Both are good. Yeah.
both is good.
It's also, but it also has to come down to the fact that like it comes back to what we said before is to get Sonic, there's a much higher barrier to entry. To get Mario, it's just like okay. And I feel like that's true with every Sonic game and every Mario game. Like you can pick up Mario Brothers 1 and it's okay. I'm good. And you pick up Sonic 1 and you can be like, "Okay, I'm good." But then like that hill gets steeper and steeper as you progress. Where in Mario it's very much there's the same thing.
So
It's like
then at
it's a
that point, then is it a challenge thing? Like at that point, it's like is it just a level of challenge? Like the challenge, like the escalation of challenge might be a steeper hill in Sonic versus Mario, but they both have it though. Like
yeah.
they both definitely have it. It's just that yeah,
There's
yeah, I
there's
could see that.
there's a debate to be had there. Like
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to what you had more experience with. Like talk to me when I was younger and I was playing Mario, Sonic 2 a lot. I would have said like, yeah, this is better than Mario. But yeah, I mean now Page Masters. Page Masters is that one game I want. Yeah, I want.
Page
Yeah, I want to get like a complete in box hard, like the hard plastic case of it. I want to get that because it's just like that was the game I played so much. Page Masters. Oh,
I hear
that's a
you.
bad.
Hey
That's
man,
a that's a bad game.
you know what though? That's okay.
Yeah.
That's why I normally say it's like for people that have their love for games that people might perceive to be bad games. I respect that.
Oh yeah.
We all have that. Like we all have games that we know deep down in their heart are not great games. But there are ones that either we have a special tie to or that we just love playing, like love picking up a bad game. I can tell you what, an objectively bad game that I always find myself going back to and playing is this one right here. It's Pit Fighter. I know
Oh.
people hate on Pit Fighter. It is a stupid, ballsy John Claude Van Damme Bloodsport style, best of the best '90s schmuck fest. It is. I love it.
Yeah.
it's, it's a terrible game. It's a button masher to the very end of the earth, but I love it. That's also another one I played in the arcade with my dad back in the day.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, like
that's another one.
that's something we didn't talk about in this podcast. Maybe we'll do another one soon. But it's like a lot of this is fueled by our nostalgia for it. Like
Absolutely.
we have these deep-seated emotions and memories tied to these video games, or like when I play Sonic Adventure 2, I'm automatically transported down to the basement in my parents' house where I'm sitting there in front of this old CRT television and the basement floor is still concrete and it's cold, but I'm
Mhm.
enjoying it.
Yep.
Me and my brother swapped between like characters as we played, and there's like these memories that were very influential and important to us. And really, it's kind of hard to say like you have those same kind of memories when it comes to movies. Like what you do, pass the remote back and forth to pause and unpause.
Right.
You know?
Oh, but that's a different kind of nostalgia, though. I'd
Yeah.
say with like nostalgia, like say for example the original '80s Ninja Turtles movie. It's like you'll have those that sort of nostalgia feelings too, but it's a different kind of nostalgia. Every now and then you'll want to pick up and play an old game that you love. Every now and then you'll want to fire up Netflix and look and see if a movie that you watched when you were a kid is on, just to just satiate
Avatar:
that
The
feeling.
Last Airbender's on Netflix now. Been binging
Yeah, there
that.
you go.
That's a great show.
There you go. Nostalgia is a very, very powerful thing, but my thing about nostalgia and far be it from me, whose channel is basically all about nostalgia. But it's like, as long as you understand that nostalgia is purely it, and you don't really let that kind of cloud your judgment on the newer stuff that's really coming through, then you're good. Again, going back to Sonic, it's like, we kind of grew up with that. You have your nostalgia for that. That's great.
Hmm.
But whenever there's something that's new that came up with the thing that you grew up with is something new, there's a chance that they're going to make changes. There's a chance that they're going to put it in a direction that's more for this newer generation and not for you. And that's okay. It's like
Yeah.
Teen Titans Go, perfect example.
Yeah.
I hate that show, but it needs to exist because it's something for a different generation. Maybe this wasn't for you, and that's okay. But some people get real butthurt about that.
Exactly. The only time I can see you getting upset about the thing that you have nostalgia for is when the new thing literally changes the one that you're nostalgia for. Legend
But
of
here's the
Korra versus The Last Airbender. Legend of Korra dramatically affects The Last Airbender. You can still kind of like how I do it is I'm just like Legend of Korra never happened and I got my Last Airbender. I mean it's
well, I
still
mean,
there, but it's
yeah,
still like it's still fingered it up a little bit. But you can't fault the creators to like wanting to bring this franchise, this character, this video game to a new generation where they can create their own nostalgia feelings towards it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like another example would be the Ghostbusters movie that came out a couple of years ago. Now, granted, it wasn't great, but it's like for those like, oh, my childhood, da, da, da," it's like, okay, well, then how about this? Look behind you. Do you still have that copy of Ghostbusters on your wall?
Yeah.
Okay. Did it get destroyed? Is it on fire? Did it disintegrate? No, it's still there. You're okay.
Yeah,
Your
you're good.
childhood is okay. It's
You
fine.
can
This
ignore
one
it.
can exist, and you can completely ignore it. It's like that's fine. You don't have to go on Twitter tirades and whatnot saying about this. You don't have to do that. It's a waste of time. Just celebrate the one that you love.
Oh yeah. But if someone asks me, I'll be like, no, Korra sucks.
Right? Or I'm gonna say, oh yeah, the new Ghostbusters, yeah, that wasn't good.
Yeah,
No,
no,
no.
no, not
Especially
good.
the new game. Oh, that new game was awful. Oh, it was bad.
Was it? I
The,
didn't
the
even
last
touch it.
Ghostbusters game, not the remastered one, not that
Hmm.
one, the one that remastered the 360 one. That was a great game. No, I'm
Hmm.
talking about the one that came out for PS4 and Xbox One. It's just called Ghostbusters. Oh, it's bad.
Oh.
I rented it. It was awful. Like, man, how did y'all get away with releasing this?
You're probably
But
like, oh, I'm glad I rented this. I didn't buy it.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Man,
But yeah, you're absolutely right. But yeah, nostalgia it's a super powerful thing, and it can really make you happy, or it can really make you sad, depending on your take on it.
yeah. But it's one of those emotions that's really hard to overcome, and I feel like a lot of us get lost in that feeling where it's just like, I can't believe you're touching it. Just leave it alone.
Right.
You know.
I get it. I
I don't.
totally get it. But my key is that if you could still go back to your originals, then it's okay.
Yeah, as
But I
long as
also
it's,
understand at the same time, like say you remember the design of the original Sonic movie. I mean,
yeah,
trust me, I was okay with it.
me
But the
too.
more and more and more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, this actually kind of hurts. But I'm willing to give it a chance. But
Yeah,
the people were like super vocal, like we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this. And to me, they made the right call. They're just like, okay,
I'm
then we're gonna
glad
we're gonna
people
listen to
like.
you.
I'm glad people voiced their opinions and we got a different Sonic. But
I'm
at the
glad
other
people voiced their
point,
opinions, and I'm extra glad that people actually went to go see this movie because that
yeah,
was one of my biggest things. And I said this in my video about it because I was just like, look, y'all got what you wanted, like that's great. But if you sit there and you rate on Twitter and you rate on social media about how this needs to change, and you don't go see this movie, shut up.
yeah, like put your money
That's
where your
really
mouth
what it is.
is.
Exactly.
Me and my
Exactly.
brother, we
But
went to go
hey,
see
it
it, and
worked. It did.
yeah,
It did well.
it was a good movie, and like
Yeah.
it was fun. It was great. I'm excited for the sequel. The one thing I want to see though, and I wish someone would leak the concept art for like how the echidnas looked, how that
Yeah.
owl looked, how Tails looked. That would be nightmare fuel.
Well, here's the thing. I bought the Blu-ray. I bought the 4K Blu-ray. Apparently, it has like deleted scenes that show the original models, and one of them got leaked with Baby Sonic. I remember
Oh,
that one of them got leaked ahead. Well, no, it didn't even get leaked. I think Paramount officially put it out to promote the Blu-ray. But
really?
yeah, I need to. I still shame on me haven't gotten a chance to watch those yet. Those special features. I
Yeah,
need to
shame on you.
because I wonder if they're in there,
You
and I
need to
wonder with like.
watch them and report back.
Right? And I
Uh,
wonder because like I remember seeing the concepts where they showed like the original model that they actually used in this and like the still model that they used in the scenes. Like you see the backstage development of it. I'm like, I wonder how much is on there. And I know like release the Snyder cut of Justice League, release the ugly Sonic cut of Sonic the movie. I'm like, do you really want this?
oh.
Do you really want this? Be careful what you're wishing for.
I don't think I want it. I just want to see what Tails was gonna look like because I'm looking at Sonic. I'm like, oh, that would be creepy. That Tails would be creepy.
No, I just really won this because, like, I mean, it's spoilers, yes, but if you haven't seen it at this point, I'm sorry. But like seeing him in the bonus or in the post credit scene, sorry, like seeing it in the post credit scene, it really makes me wonder if he even had an original model to begin with, or they worked on him after everything got redesigned, and this is his original model, or at least a form of his original model. I'd be inclined to think that he probably didn't have one like Sonic had one. Like this is Tails, and
Oh,
that's good.
maybe. Yeah, you're
Maybe,
probably right.
maybe. I don't know. I guess we'll never know unless
Yeah,
you're on the inside. We'll probably never know.
yeah. That's sad. Well, man, it's been a pleasure, and I just tapped the yeah. There's gonna be a video. There's gonna be a volume sign on this. Thanks,
Oh,
keyboard.
that's all good.
Yeah. No, man, it's been a pleasure. I had a great time. We'll have to do this again sometime. Maybe when the next Sonic game comes out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Or if anytime like if you want to talk Sega, want to talk retro, like really anything like that, I'm definitely down.
Yeah. You got an open invitation, man. Well, guys, you should check out G to the Next Level's channel. It's pretty cool. He does Ghost in the Shell was the latest review I watched. I really liked that one.
I had a
I
blast making that one.
yeah. I've never seen that anime, but I like the review. Never seen the anime. Never
Should
seen
it's
the
wonderful.
Scarlett Johansson. I
It's
was
not
done
bad.
with it. I was done with Scarlett Johansson after Lucy. I was like, nope, I'm done. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this new installment in the story mode, always sporadic franchise. See you guys again next time. Bye.
Take care. Thanks again.